ओम सदाशिवसमारंभां शंकराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ओम वाङ् मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्म एधि वेदस्य मआणीस्थः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनाधीतेन अहोरात्रान् संदधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम्। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हिरण्यवर्णां हरिणीं सुवर्णरजतस्रजां चन्द्रां हिरण्मयीं लक्ष्मीं जातवेदो महावः तां महावः जातवेदो लक्ष्मीमनपगामिनीं यस्यां हिरण्यं विन्देयं गामश्वं पुरुषानहम् अश्वपूर्वां रथमध्यां हस्तिनादप्रबोधिनीं श्रियं देवीमुपह्वये श्रीर्मा देवीर्जुषताम् कांसोऽस्मितां हिरण्यप्राकारामार्द्रां ज्वलन्तीं तृप्तां तर्पयन्तीं पद्मे स्थितां पद्मवर्णां तामिहोपह्वये श्रियम् चन्द्रां प्रभासां यशसा ज्वलन्तीं श्रियं लोके देवजुष्टामुदारां तां पद्मिनीं शरणमहं प्रपद्ये लक्ष्मीर्मे नश्यतां त्वां वृणे। So we were looking at the fifth rik, and in fact this fifth rik is a different chandas. You can see it is bigger, correct? And here one important thing is what? Aham sharanam prapadye. I take refuge is a very important thing here. I take refuge in this Devi. Sharanam, actually the word has two meanings. Sharanam means a home also is a sharana, or anywhere you feel at home is a sharana, or a protector also is called a sharana. So here sharanam aham prapadye means the meaning for sharana is given by Sayanacharya as Rakshitri only. Okay, the one who protects you and in whom you take refuge. Okay. Now here this Sharanagati or Sharana is actually discussed a lot. Whichever Vedanta it is, okay. Particularly Vishishtadvaitins discuss this Sharanagati a lot. But it doesn't mean that Advaitins do not talk about Sharanagati. In fact, Sharanagati is very, very important. So if you take Bhagavad Gita, Sharanagati is the main tattva which Bhagavan teaches Arjuna. And even finally, the last verse of the teaching, if you take, what is that? Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja. Like that it is there, correct? So give up all dharmas there. Dharma also includes adharma, like that Bhashyakara says. So giving up all dharma and adharma means what? Do not take yourself as the doer. Otherwise you cannot give up dharma and adharma, correct? As long as you think you are the doer, and more deluded people also think that they are the authors of the results of their action also. So one thing is to take yourself as an actor, or a doer. The other thing is what? Which most people also consider, correct? That's how you grow up and all that. Deluded means don't think that I'm condemning somebody or anything like that. But that's how people are. They have not analyzed many things. So many things are what we call avichara siddha. Avichara siddha means what? You have grown up in a particular society, in a certain culture, and you take certain things for granted. You have not thought about it, you have not analyzed it. So, like that, so many things are there which are actually affecting you a lot, but you have not really thought about it. That is what we say avichara siddha. Without any vichara, it is there. And your life is in fact based on such assumptions, whatever you have taken for granted. And one of the most basic assumption is you are the doer and you are also the author of the results of your action. Means you are, then you can either be a success or a failure, correct? Because you are the author of the results of action, means any results of action will either make you a success depending on your expectation, correct? If it is as per your expectation or more than your expectation, you think that you are a success. But if it is less than your expectation, or even if it is opposite, then you take yourself as a failure. That itself is a problem. So how do I get rid of this feeling of being either a success or failure? In fact, if you are always successful, maybe it's not an issue. But in reality, even the greatest human being, most powerful, most wealthy, even for them, if you take stock of all their activities and how they look upon themselves, means majority of them would have been failures, would have been less than their own expectation. Because the greater you are, the greater your own expectations out of the actions you are doing. Therefore, with reference to your own expectation, you will still be a failure. For others, maybe it is they look upon you differently. So you are always a failure there. If you take yourself as the author of the results of your action, mostly failures only you are facing, then that becomes a problem. In fact, that can become a psychological problem that can lead to depression. All these things are born out of your attitude towards the results of your action. So what is the attitude we should have then? Means your attitude should be based on a simple fact. What is that fact? Bhagavan in Gita gives you that fact. The fact is what? Karmanyeva adhikaraha te ma phaleshu kadachana. So you have choice with reference to action alone. You are qualified to do, not do, or do it differently. That qualification you have. But the results of action are not just a function of your effort alone. You have to still put in your effort. Okay. In a given situation, whatever is right, towards that you have to put in your effort. But the results are still a function of something more than your effort. That is where we look upon Bhagavan as the, or Bhagavati, if you are looking at the goddess, as the karma pala data, or the one who gives you the results of your action. Therefore, all results of action are prasada because they are coming from the altar of the goddess or Bhagavati. Okay, it's coming from the altar of the Bhagavati or Bhagavan. So it is a prasada, and the prasada buddhi is there in our culture always. You go to a temple, whatever you get from the altar, you take it with a certain reference. You do not complain that no, I only want laddu. I will not take tirtham. Some water also they give, correct, in many temples, or they give you vibhuti. No, I don't want ash. I want only chakra pongal or whatever, sweet rice. All this we don't complain in the temple. Whatever we get from the altar of Ishvara or Ishwari, we take it with a certain reverence. Now that same thing you have to bring with reference to everything else in your life also. Then you have actually done a certain level of Sharanagati. What is the Sharanagati here? You have surrendered your status as the author of the results of action. In fact, it was never yours. You are actually surrendering that status because that status itself was born out of certain avichara siddha, or it is only delusion, really. So you have surrendered that means what? You do not take yourself as the author of the results of your action. There is a certain order. There is a niyati. Bhagavan only is manifest as this order. There are so many orders which actually support this very creation, correct? Without all these orders, the creation will be totally chaotic. So there is a certain order in the creation, that is what we call dharma, and this dharma itself is a manifestation of Bhagavan. So everything is in order in this Srishti. In fact, you surrender to that order, which is not separate from Bhagavan or Bhagavati. So that is the thing, that is a certain cognitive change has to occur in you. Then you are a yogi, correct? In fact, this in the 18th chapter itself, if you take one verse before this Manmana, this Sarvadharman Parityajya, that is where Bhagavan is talking about the Sharanagati Tattva, is what Bhashyakara also actually says that. In fact, he makes a very interesting statement there. He says, Karma Yoga Nishtayaha Paramarahasyam Ishvara Sharanatam Upasamhritya. Like that, he starts the introduction to the Sarvadharman Parityajya verse. So, the Karma Yoga Nishtayaha Paramarahasyam, the great secret of leading a committed lifestyle with an attitude of Karma Yoga is what? Ishvara Sharanatam, he says. Taking refuge in Ishvara. Okay, how did Bhagavan talk about that taking refuge in Ishvara means what? Bhagavan says, Manmana bhava madbhaktaha madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. That is the verse which is there. So, how do you take refuge in Bhagavan? Means you take refuge in Bhagavan by recognizing Bhagavan in everything, correct? Including your own body, mind, sense complex. That is the most important thing. Many people say that Bhagavan is everything and then it stops here, right here. You cannot do that. Bhagavan is everything, including your body, mind, sense complex also is part of the same order which is manifest here. So you have to also look upon yourself, your own body, mind, sense complex also as a manifestation of Bhagavan. Then only you will have a certain space. Everything is in order, even your own reactions. But that doesn't mean that you don't make any effort in terms of chitta shuddhi, in terms of changing your attitudes. All that sadhana effort we have to make. But with an understanding that wherever you are, you don't have to blame yourself for that. The self-blame is a very big problem. Self-blame and self-pity is a tragedy. One should not have that. So even to avoid self-blame and self-pity, one has to take oneself in whatever situation you are. Okay. that also is part of Bhagavan's order only. Even your own background, your own birth, it's all your prarabdha karma. Also, we have to take into account. You are in a certain situation, so you have to accept that. Accepting is the greatest virtue. Accepting yourself and accepting others as they are. Then you have a certain freedom. All sorrow is because of non-acceptance of fact, non-acceptance of a particular situation. That is the problem. That leads to sorrow, because then you think, why me, and all that. Okay, why me? Why am I like this? Why are others like this? If you keep thinking like that, you will become immobilized. You will go into certain sadness and sorrow and depression. But instead, this is how it is. That is my karma. That is how my background is. These things have happened. I accept it, and now what can I do? So if you are looking forward to doing something, means there is no sadness there. Understand? It may be a most difficult situation. Still, if you are looking forward to doing something, means there is no sadness. You can actually encounter any situation. Depending on your attitude, you will come out of that or not. It depends on that. So the right attitude is to accept the reality as it is, and then look for whatever can be done. And to accept the reality itself, you have to accept everything as part of Ishvara's order. Your own body mind sense complex also is part of that order. All others are also part of the same order. Even though it may look disorderly, once you look at the order and you appreciate it, you have actually taken refuge in that order itself. That will give you a certain peace, certain ability to understand things and then take it forward from there. Then there is no sorrow, there is no problem. So this Sharanagati, Manmana Bhava, like that Bhagavan says. Manmana means may your mind be on me, Machittaha. Okay. May you think about me means what? In fact, the best way of thinking about Bhagavan always is to recognize Bhagavan in everything. Correct? You don't have to think about Bhagavan in one particular form or anything. That is what normally people understand it like that. But that's not possible, correct? You cannot keep one. You may have a certain Ishta Devata. Krishna is your Ishta Devata. Devi is your Ishta Devata. Murugan is your Ishta Devata. Ganapati is your Ishta Devata. But still, that same Devata, Swarupa, Rupa, can you always be thinking about that? That's not possible. Then how do I keep Bhagavan always in my mind? How do I think about Bhagavan always? Even in another place also Bhagavan says, Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janah paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. So yogakshemam vahamyaham is the slogan of LIC. They have taken it from Bhagavad Gita. So the one who thinks Ananyas chintayanto mam, okay, Ananyaha means what there? Some people translate it as all the time or continuously and all that. But Ananyaha, not separate from me. Okay, Bhagavan is not separate from you. Bhagavan is not separate from any other object also. Everything is Bhagavan. So whenever you cognize any object, if you are able to see Bhagavan in that, Bhagavan is the cause of everything. Bhagavan is the Abhina Nimitta Upadana Karana. Everything has come from Bhagavan only. Or Bhagavati, if you look upon in the feminine, means then it is Manmana Bhava is easy. Then when you see like that, you are actually a bhakta only. Madbhaktaha. means this bhakta, devotee, is the base role. We have to understand. See, in life, we are playing so many different roles. You are a son, you are a father, you are an employee, you are an employer, you are a citizen. Like this, so many roles. You are a spouse. All roles are there. They are all with reference to some relationship with somebody else. Correct? All roles are with relation to something or somebody else. Those are the roles you are playing. One of the problem is that you carry the issues of one role into another. That itself is a problem in day-to-day life. So if you are able to focus on a particular role at a particular time, whatever role you are playing, you focus on that alone, let us say, means life will be simpler. That itself you have to learn. It's an important thing. So you are playing the role of an employee, you have some problem in the office, you carry forward that in at home also, and then you have problem with your spouse because you are still upset at whatever happened at office. So it's easy to say you should not carry these things which are specific to a particular role into some other situation where that role has no role really. But even that is not very easy unless you are alert to your own feelings, your own emotions, and you are able to have a certain mastery over your own emotions and your mind. It's not that easy, but it can be. It all starts with making certain effort, trying to be alert about what is happening to you. But the most basic role is that of a devotee. Why? Because you are also related to Bhagavan. Bhagavan is actually the creator, in fact, even of your own body, mind, sense complex. Even though your mother is the one from whom you have come, but mother herself, mother and father themselves cannot be considered the cause completely. Maybe if they were totally in charge, they would have made you differently. We don't know. So, Bhagavan is the one with whom we are all the time related. That role never goes away. All other roles are temporary, but the relationship with Bhagavan never ceases. It is the fundamental relationship, and then based on that relationship, the role as a bhakta is something you have to play. In fact, bhakta alone is playing all other roles. If it is like that, then in fact all other role playing itself will become easier. Because being a bhakta, you recognize Ishvara's order even while you are playing all the other roles. Then it is easy for you. Life becomes easier. So the bhakta is the primary role. Who is playing all other roles? Then you are really madbhaktaha. You are the devotee of the Lord always. That never goes away. Even while you are playing any role, the devotee is playing that role, not an individual, puny individual who has all sorts of psychological issues. If that individual is playing those roles, then you have problem. But the devotee is playing the role, means there is no problem. You do whatever is right in a situation. If the individual is playing the role, your likes and dislikes will be the main factor which is pushing you, which is actually pressurizing you to do certain things in a particular situation. Then there is always problem. If you go with your likes and dislikes, you will end up in problem. You will have guilt, hurt, fear, everything will come. You cannot escape. But if you go by what is right and wrong, if you approach a situation as a bhakta, appreciating Ishvara's order, and in that, whatever is right, you try to do that, in spite of your likes and dislikes, then you are a mature person. In fact, then only you have, even relatively, you can have peace. You don't have to have any guilt, fear. You are ready to take whatever comes as Ishvara Prasada. So that way, you, by doing your duty, Swakarmana Tamabhyarchya. So Madhyaji also Bhagavan says. So you worship me only. How do I worship Bhagavan? That also Bhagavan says in the 18th chapter only. How? Yatah pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manavaha. So you gain success in life. How? By doing your swakarma. So the swakarma, what is one's own karma, was easier to understand in a society which had varnashrama by birth. Then by birth only what you have to do and all was decided. So you have to just go along with that, not with reference to your likes and dislikes, but whatever is your swadharma. Swakarma also is defined based on that. Nowadays it is not like that. Then you have to work out what is your swadharma. That itself is a problem. But you can work it out. Largely by the time you become an adult, your swakarma and swadharma you can work out, because you have already had certain education, you have a certain job, etc. So based on that, whatever it is, you have to do that. And doing that swakarma itself is doing archana to Bhagavan, worshipping Bhagavan, because you recognize everything has come from Bhagavan only, but everything is Bhagavan's order. Yatah pravrittir bhutanam, he says, from which all the beings have come, by whom everything is pervaded. And that Bhagavan, you do abhyarchya, how? Swakarmana, by one's own karma. So do your karma, dharma. So swadharme nidhanam shreyaha, paradharmo bhayavahaha, like that Bhagavan says, already he has said. Even if you die doing your swadharma, it is better, because you will die peacefully at least. You know you did the right thing. Whatever happened, let it happen. But if you do somebody else's job, then you will be having problems. Paradharma, if you do, you will only have bhaya, he says. You will only have fear, guilt, hurt. So, how do I take Sharanam? Means by doing Swakarma and by worshipping Bhagavan through that. You do Namaskara to Bhagavan. Mam Namaskuru also he says. So if you do all these things, this means what? You have taken Sharanagati in Bhagavan. You think everything is Bhagavan only. And you are the Bhakta. Bhakta is the main role. And by doing your Swakarma, by doing the right thing in each and every situation, in whichever role you are playing, you are worshipping Bhagavan. And in this way, you lead your life and you do Namaskara to Bhagavan, means what? You have surrendered to Bhagavan, the order, which is Bhagavan. You surrender to that. And then what? Then you will reach Bhagavan only. You will reach Bhagavan means what? You will, this life of Karma Yoga, whose secret is to surrender to the Lord like this. That will prepare you for gaining Atma Jnanam. And when you gain Atma Jnanam, whom do you reach? Where do you go means what? you reach the limitless, in fact. That is Bhagavan. Mame Vaishyasi. You will gain Bhagavan, who is the limitless. In fact, the greatest surrender is to surrender your limitations, in fact. To think that you are a limited being itself is the greatest problem. You surrender that very thought. You surrender the limited ego, because it is only, however big it becomes, the bloated ego, it is still a limited thing. That's not your Swarupa, in fact. So you have to surrender all your limitations, and what you gain? You gain the knowledge that you are already the limitless, in fact. That is the beauty here. So this Sharanam, I surrender to Bhagavati. What kind of Bhagavati? Chandram. I think these things we saw already. Chandram means one who is pleasing, means Ananda Swarupa also we can take. One who is always pleased and one who is pleasing to others, means Ananda Swarupaha. Prabhasam, one who shines, specially she shines. Even among those who are Yashasad, okay, Loke Yashasad Jwalantim, Prabhasam, means one who shines among even all those who are very popular and famous and all that also we can take here. Or Prabhasam, one who shines, and also Yashasad Jwalantim, again one who is shining and glorious due to her fame, all her glories. In fact, all glories which are there here are the glories of Devi, Bhagavati, Shri, such a Shri. Or this Loke Sharanamaham also you can take. Iha Loke, I am there here, and so I surrender. Like that also you can take. And what kind of Bhagavati? Deva Jushtam, one who is worshipped by Devas like Indra, etc. And Udaram, one who is Udaram, again different meanings we can take. Eminent, exalted. Even in Bhagavad Gita, this word Udara comes. Udara, Sarvaye Vaite. So there he is talking about the Bhaktas. Chaturvida bhajante maam. Artho Jignasur Artharti Jnani cha Bharatarshaba. Like that, for Arthaha, Artharti, Jignasu, Jnani. So Artha Bhakta means who only thinks of the Lord when he is in some trouble, afflicted. Then Artharthi means what? One who takes Lord as his partner. Whenever he is doing something, he wants success in that. Means what? He is taking Lord Bhagavan also as the partner in that. He prays to Bhagavan whenever he undertakes some endeavor. Most business people are all Artharthi. But Jignasu is the one who thinks, no, I want to know the nature of Bhagavan. See, generally when we start out as bhaktas, we just have some idea about Bhagavan, means some power. I believe in, many people you ask them, they will say, I believe in a higher power. That's all. I don't want to think anything more. Okay, that's how you start. Nothing wrong. And you pray to that higher power. But then if you are really inquisitive, curious, and you analyze your own life, and you see certain inadequacy in all your accomplishments, then not only do you want to know yourself, but you want to know the nature of this Bhagavan with whom you have been having a certain relationship as a devotee till now, correct? What is the Swarupa of this Bhagavan? We think some higher power and all that, but what is the nature of this higher power? Let me know the Bhagavad Swarupa. better. Means you are a jignasu. In fact, if you want to know Bhagavad Swarupa, you have to finally come to your own Swarupa only. Because Bhagavad Swarupa is not separate from your own Swarupa. The nature of Bhagavan is not different from your own nature. In fact, both are one and the same. That's how you have to conclude finally. Then you are a jnani. Once you have understood that, you start as a jignasu, you end up as a jnani. And now all these people are, all bhaktas, Bhagavan says, are all eminent, exalted, udara, udara, sarva. But jnani is special in that. Because jnani is myself, he says. Jnani to atmaiva me matam. Like this. Anyway, so the udaram means here you can take pragalbham like this. Sayanacharya is giving the meaning. Means eminent, confident also. Pragalbha means all that you can give different meanings. Or udara also means udara, means one who is having a vishala or generous. Generosity also is called udara, means accommodative, generous and accommodative. And so if you extend that meaning a little bit, the one who is all pervading alone can be totally accommodated, correct? Like even space accommodates everything. Goddess is the one who accommodates everything. Udaram, Tam, Padminim. So Padminim means one who is in lotus, you can take. So the lotus we even saw in the previous rig, correct? Padme Sthitam, Padmavarnam, Tamihopahvaye Shriyam. So this lotus is a very important thing in our culture. It is, in fact, in Indian culture or in Eastern cultures itself or Eastern civilizations, lotus represents many different things. Okay, lotus is very, very important. In fact, if you remember our Narayana Sukta class, there this lotus also is your heart really, correct? In fact, it says the lotus which is adho means which is facing down, as though the lotus is facing upside down like this. That is your heart. And in that heart, you have to do upasana of Narayana. Means because Narayana is there, Bhagavan is there. So here also Padme Sthitam or Padminim. Padminim also can mean the same thing. The one who is in Padma means one who is in your heart, because the Padma can be taken as your heart. Or even Padma is always associated with Bhagavan also. Correct? Padmanabha Swami. Vishnu himself is presented as one who is having a lotus in his navel, and then in that Brahmaji is sitting in that. The creator is on Padma. The entire Srishti is from one who is in this Padma. Means what? Again, Padma is the Hridaya or Buddhi Guha. Is the lotus. It is also representative of knowledge. Because all knowledge, Brahma is the, without knowledge there is no Srishti, correct? All creation presupposes knowledge of the created. And all knowledge, that is why Padma, this Bhagavan Brahmaji also is sitting on Padma, means what? That represents knowledge again. Sahasrara and all we say. That is also Padma. Even in your, when those who talk about chakras also, they represent the Sahasrara as a Padma. They even talk about 1,000-petaled lotus and all that. That is why it is called Sahasrara. 1,000 petals. The normal lotus has many petals. So lotus is a very special flower because again, so many things you can talk about lotus. That it is growing, it grows regardless of the environment, it is growing beautifully. And it is so nice to look at beauty. certain beauty is there in lotus, correct? Means there is a certain glory to the lotus. It may be there in mud, but still it is glorious. In spite of whatever may be the circumstances, it blooms and it is glorious and it has nice fragrance. So that way also lotus can be even looked upon as a mumukshu, as a qualified student is like a lotus, and in that qualified student only Bhagavan Bhagavad Swarupa is recognized or it is known. And lotus leaves and lotus itself, even though it is in water, the water cannot wet that, correct? So that also is very important. Padma Patra Mivam Basa, like that, even in Gita also Bhagavan uses that as an analogy. So you live in this world like the lotus leaf. Means what? You are in the world, but the world cannot touch you. That is beautiful. So lotus is very, very intrinsic to our culture, our religious culture. Lotus we use in our puja, it's supposed to be very special. And also lotus pose, Padmini, Padme Sthitam means Padmasana Sthitam also, like that we say, the Devi. Most of the Devatas, even the Vigraha, if you see, they will all be sitting in Padmasana. That also is an important thing, correct? Padmasana. Why do you sit in Padmasana? The moment you sit like this with your, also you should not be sitting like this. If you want to do some dhyanam, nididhyasanam, or even just you want to contemplate on something, it may not be something religious, even about something you want to think about your own life, what you want to do. You are doing some serious thinking, means you cannot do that by lying down or anything. You will go to sleep then. Standing also is not very good, but sitting in Padmasana, you suddenly become alert to your own thought process. It brings out, there's a certain natural progression in that. When you sit like this in Padmasana and keep your samam kaya shiro grivam, like that it is said, correct, even in Gita. If you want to do dhyanam, keep your body and shiras and neck and your head in one line. Should not be, you should not go like this, then you will go to sleep. But sit like, you don't have to be like this, like a military officer or anything, but sit comfortably, straight. When you sit like that only, your mind, the the focus of your mind changes just by the posture. The posture itself gives you that certain alertness, I would say. And then you can try to focus on whatever you want to. So that is why even there is a Brahma Sutra on this, actually. Asina Sambhavat. In the 4th chapter, first pada, even Vyasacharya is analyzing this, that you have to sit and then only dhyana is possible, Sambhavat. Only for a person who is sitting straight, this dhyana is possible, nididhyasanam is possible. Then Bhashyakara also, there also he says, if you lie down and all, you will go to sleep. It's not a good posture. So sitting in Padmasana means again that represents certain quest for knowledge. Padmasana is looked upon as the one of the most important asanas. Even if you take all other Hatha Yoga asanas, in Patanjali Sutra also, asanam means what? Sukham sthiram asanam. You have to hold a certain posture which is also comfortable. Sukham. See, if you cannot be in a certain posture where you are not comfortable and then do dhyanam, correct? If you are not in a comfortable posture, then your mind will always be only going towards that pain, whatever is that discomfort. It will be only focusing on that. It cannot focus on what it wants to or what you want to really focus. That is why any posture which is comfortable and which you can hold on for a length of time, at least one muhurtam, you should be able to hold on to it. 48 minutes. If you are able to sit in Padmasana for 48 minutes, means we say that you have asana siddhi, they say. You have a certain siddhi. You have succeeded in holding on to that asana. You have gained a certain asana prapti is there. That is good. Even 48 minutes you can do dhyanam sitting in a particular posture. If you are not able to do the classical Padmasana where the legs go between each other and all that, Ardha Padmasana also is good. Just fold your legs and sit. That is also a type of Padmasana only. So this Padmasana Stham, Padmini means that way also you can take one who is in Padmasana. Because this Padmasana aids you in gaining knowledge. It makes your mind alert. And Eem is there. Padminim Eem. Now, Ikara here is Anarthakaha, like this Sayanacharya says. In fact, he quotes Yaska also in this. Yaska is the one who wrote Nighantu. And not Nighantu, Niruktam. Okay, Niruktam, Nighantu means Nighantu is originally the first dictionary. Nirukta also is like a thesaurus or a dictionary for Vedic words. So, Nitakshareshu Anarthakaha Kim Im Imiti, like this Yaska is saying. Yaska Vachana. Yaska also, Bhashyakara also quotes Yaska in many places in Brahma Sutra also. So, Ikara can come as Anartha without any meaning because it is just a filler. Particularly in Mitakshara means a verse, correct? In verses, you have certain restrictions in terms of chandas, correct? What syllable you have to use where, how many syllables you have to have and all that. And if you want a filler, you can use words like kim, im, ki, e, all these things, im and all that you can use. Kim, im. So im here is anarthaka. That is one way you can take it. Or there is something very interesting in Sanskrit. There is something called Ekakshara Nighantu or Ekakshara Kosha. There people have written small dictionaries for only one syllabled words. Like Om is a single syllable. Or A, each and every alphabet in Sanskritam you take Akshara also. They give a meaning for each of that. A means it is Vasudeva, Krishna. Why? Bhagavan says in Gita, Akshara Anama Karosmi, like that, correct? So I am the Akara in Akshara, all the Aksharas. So Bhagavan as the cause of everything is looked upon as Akara because Akara is the sound which actually morphs as all other sounds, correct? If you open your mouth and utter, it is A is the sound you get without any other effort you put in. That is the base sound. All other sounds are only modifications of that. So Bhagavan also is like that Akara. This is said even in Tamil. Akara mudala ezhuthellam Adi Bhagavan mudatre ulagu. So the Agara mudala ezhuthellam. All words are having Akara as the beginning. Means Akara is the cause of all sounds. Like that, Adi Bhagavan is the cause of this entire world. Even some Tamil commentators who have written there, they quote Bhagavad Gita and they draw a equivalence between Tirukural and Bhagavad Gita there. Aksharanam Akarosmi, it comes in the 10th chapter. So, here Ekakshara Kosha is there. In that E means Lakshmi. That is the meaning they give. Ikara Vachyam. Im. That way also we can take. So E is Lakshmi there. A is Krishna. Like that, for each alphabet they give different meanings. It's very interesting. If you can get hold of the Ekakshara Kosha, you can go and refer. In fact, some people have written it even in the form of verses. Ekakshara Kosha itself, there are so many verses are there. I have studied that some time back. And so each A means Swayambhu, like that. A is Vasudeva, A is Swayambhu. E means Kama. E is Lakshmi. These are all some things I remember. So it's very interesting that way, correct? And so here Eem can be taken as Lakshmi. Such a Lakshmi, I take refuge in. Why? And if you take refuge in this Lakshmi, what happens? Alakshmir me nashyatam. All the opposite of Lakshmi is what? Alakshmi. Alakshmi means anything which makes you a wanting person is Alakshmi only. Don't think only like grinding poverty is Alakshmi. Shud pipasa, any thirst or hunger is Alakshmi only. Because any hunger or thirst means what? You are a wanting person. You are a wanting person means you are a limited being. Anything which implies you are a limited being is Alakshmi. Lakshmi means the limitless. Always triptam. One who is always complete, full, without any feeling of want. That is Lakshmi. And even though you may be very rich, if you do not have contentment, correct, then you are only poor. Poverty, you are still having poverty. So, Alakshmir me nashyatam, all my limitations, all my wants, all this hunger, thirst, everything is Alakshmi, let them all be destroyed. Twam vrine, I pray to you for that, correct? I ask you for that. That is my prayer. Let all my limitations be destroyed. Means what? Then you are the limitless. That is what one has to understand. That is the reality of oneself, in fact. So that is the main thing here. This is a very beautiful prayer. And in this, we have to also understand how to take refuge in Bhagavati or Bhagavan. That involves certain understanding, cognitive change. And once you take that Sharanam, means that is the secret of Karma Yoga, in fact. Then your life is made, becomes easy. You have attained whatever you want to attain. So with that, we'll see the next, all the other rigs next week. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
धन्यवाद गुरुजी.
धन्यवाद
धन्यवाद है गुरुजी.